before I tell you the one that everyone pretty much agrees upon. Yeah, so there were like some ancient stories, like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the
Gilgamesh is not sci-fi.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. These are like honorable mentions. These are when people are like, you could say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, like technology is used, I suppose.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's because there's this Japanese story where this girl sort of time travels, and then there are some Arabian stories where people fly. There's like flying. They have like lettuce wings or something.
So there was fantasy. I
Yes,
guess.
and then I just want to mention real quick the Tempest, who Human Me is named after.
Yeah.
Ariel. A lot of people on the internet say that the Tempest is a work of science fiction because they say that Prospero is a mad scientist, but he's probably more of a magician. But they didn't really have a difference at that time, so.
Yeah, magicians were scientists.
Yeah.
And alchemists and stuff.
Exactly. So maybe that was the first one, but everybody really agrees that it's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein because bringing people, like electricity was kind of like a new thought thing, experiment that was happening.
She specifically wrote a novel to explore an idea because she had read some article about electricity, some like popular science article about electrical
about
experiments.
frogs, about if you poke a dead frog with electricity, its legs move as if it were alive, and she was fascinated by this.
Like, oh, what if you could bring people back to life? And that is
yeah
quintessential science fiction. Some scientific advance, and then a writer is like. But what if?
But what if you could?
Your mate was a computer.
But what if you could make an ideal person out of dead persons?
This is our play on Black Mirror.
Yeah.
How they come up with plot
This
ideas.
is actually Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mary Shelley felt like she was a bit of a freak from childhood. She had a bunch of physical problems. So the idea of making the perfect, a perfect being without man's flaws, but then having it be more flawed than man, but then having man see it and feel like he's flawed was very enticing to her. So it's Frankenstein. You should read Frankenstein too. It has a lot of daddy issues in it, and it actually when I guess read a synopsis and then like different sections of it for our Gothic literature episode, I became very emotional.
Yeah, it's great writing.
Yeah.
Around then, right? Like all sorts of people then started writing, I guess, speculative fiction novels based on that.
Yeah, and also it was like around the Age of Enlightenment. So there were all these different stories that came from the Age of Enlightenment, Voltaire, and so they all they pose these like moralistic questions as well.
Yeah, and like horror was like real big also, and we talked about in our horror stories and like horror novels or whatever, right?
Yes, horror and sci-fi were like BFFs.
Yeah.
FLs.
Because what's scarier than technological progress?
Technological failure.
Monsters. Yeah. So yeah. After Mary Shelley, like who are some big name, I guess, like 17th, 19th, or 18th or 19th century writers.
I'm just pulling up.
You pulling up your notes?
Yes. Let's see. Let me go back a little bit more.
Okay. I think Jules Verne was like not that
Jules
long
Verne
after.
was right around there. Okay, here we go. Oh,
you got your notes.
Yes, I don't have my notes. I have like someone else's notes. I wish I had my notes. Okay, but yeah, Jules Verne.
I see him on there.
Is
1851,
and he first book story that he published was Voyage in a Balloon, which is way less interesting sounding than Just voyage in a balloon. It's less interesting than 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
It's not exactly Alien vs. Predator, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean...
Oh, you're saying...
Yeah.
He just writes about journeys in different ways.
Yeah. He's like, one time a guy went in a balloon, and then another time they went from Earth to the moon, and then they went to the sea. Jules Verne had a lot of physical issues. A lot of these Victorian people were like very sickly.
Victorians are a noted sickly
they were
bunch.
pale.
Yeah.
They got the heroin chic thing going on.
Pale, they wear all black clothes. They're constantly dying.
Corsets.
They're like
they cough.
Fainting. Yeah.
Much like today.
Much like hipsters. Yeah.
Yes. So Jules Verne, he wanted to sail, and his father said, "No, you can only sail in your mind." So he did. To
the moon, of all places.
To the moon, but then also the leagues, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
So I'll call it here, even science fiction, we might as well preface this to begin with, is that science fiction is routinely criticized as a genre, although it's like less and less true these days, because a lot of science fiction writers were like pulp writers when it got very popular.
Ooh, that's like 100 years later.
No, okay. I'll say, but that was a critique, and then also because science fiction novels tend to be novels of ideas, right, or of action. Lots of stuff is happening, and so roundly criticized for not doing character or like setting development. And I think Jules Verne, like, he had very nice, like, if you've read like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, is like great like technological descriptions of the submarine and stuff.
Is that where Finding Nemo comes from? Is that where Nemo's
Captain Nemo?
Is that the fish?
Yeah.
Is he named Nemo after that?
I believe the name Nemo is after the captain of the Nautilus, which is the ship in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. By the way, a league is
a measurement.
It's a measurement that's like similar to a nautical mile, but so if you go, they're not 20,000 leagues down. They go 20,000 leagues of distance.
They're already under the sea.
Yeah.
Just no one knows how down they go. They just go over.
If you like read the definition for how far a league is, you're like, no one could go that deep. The ocean's not like that deep.
Is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Is that like that many gentlemen's long?
It's a different kind of league, like the Justice League.
Yeah. Is that where it comes from?
Like a bowling league. No, they're different.
Is a bowling alley?
A league is like a British measurement of distance. Well, not anymore, but it was. It's like a fortnight.
Not anymore. No one can talk of. No one may speak of it.
But yeah, that's because they go around the world in the submarine, and have lots of adventures. But Jules Verne wrote very much like a Victorian. So when you read his novels, you're just like, it's very stiff, kind of not well-rounded characters, and they're all Victorian. And there still is like a lot of like, I was mute with shock, and you're like, you weren't yelling because you were like scared. It's
because they all had these like, they all had these like diseases where they would like get paralyzed, and he had stomach cramps. So he probably, when he got scared, he probably just like fainted, and that's actually what was happening. You know.
Maybe the Victorians just constantly, just jaws dropped, looking stupefied.
They just died. They were constantly dying and coming back to life.
But yeah, really, both fun novels, and it's very cool to read old science fiction because you get to see their speculative like idea of what the future would be, right? So like Jules Verne writing about, I forget how the Nautilus supposedly worked, but it was more or less like would have to be a nuclear powered submarine. But this was in 1850, like before it even existed, like. Or like writing about rockets between Earth and the Moon, for example, like before rocket travel was even a thing.
It worked like a bicycle. You had to pedal.
It was it's like a Victorian
bicycle, like it was a tandem bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another author from around this time is H.G. Wells. I guess he's the next big boy in this list.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but a nautical league is 3.5 miles.
Wow.
So 20,000 leagues is 60,000 miles. So there's no way that's like more than the diameter of the Earth. So it had its distance.
Okay, you love wires.
I don't want people to think that they were like insanely deep.
What? Wires of NYC famously loves measuring things, so
I think a lot of listeners of this podcast are big fans of the measurement conversion that we go through.
You should be called Miles of NYC.
Nice.
Okay. So then we have...
You want to talk about H.G. Wells? The Time Machine.
The Time Machine.
The Eels and the Morlocks.
In 1895. Also the Island of Dr. Moreau. And in 1898, War of the Worlds. Yeah.
Right? Like, have you read War of the Worlds?
Yes.
So, like...
And the broadcast, too, the radio broadcast.
You listened to the radio broadcast?
Yes. In middle school, we had to do our own radio Foley plays. So we listened to that broadcast, and then we had to go out in the hallway and do our own dramatic readings with, like, Foley and stuff of a short story of our choice.
A Foley?
You know, like sound effects.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I didn't know that's what Foley meant.
Yeah, like...
Nice.
That's guns.
Yeah. Oh, my horse is here.
You're breaking up. Oh no, there's aliens.
Yeah,
I want to die. Oh,
let us in.
Let us in. Yeah. Yeah, that's full.
Okay, nice.
So,
So wait, let's explain just in case not.
Oh yeah, people don't know what's happening. They think we're having seizures right now.
Yeah, right. Right, War of the Worlds, the like novel, and H.G. Wells wrote all these novels, and I was gonna say War of the Worlds. Can you name any of the characters from it? No, because like H.G. Wells didn't write memorable characters. I do not remember the narrator's name. It's just about a mad doctor who does vivisection and like puts a bunch of animal and human parts together to create creatures on this island. But same thing in the Time Machine. Yeah.
H.G. Wells and H.P. Lovecraft both kind of racist. I was just thinking of the animals that he put together. Like they both kind of, well, more Lovecraft, but H.G. Wells was like
Lovecraft's super racist.
H.G. Wells was he was a socialist, but he was also very much against Zionism, and he had so he didn't like Sabra. Let's just put it that way.
He was an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
Which is like probably the fashion at the time.
The fashion, yeah. He also he was kind of like, they were all kind of like he was, I think, one of the first of these authors that was very politically like active, or socio-politically active as well, which became a theme later on, but he was like one of the first.
Well, and the Time Machine, right? No spoilers here, but the overall plot is...
No spoil.
It's not you think it would be like cool time travel stuff. It actually is just a fantasy novel. So the guy like does build a time machine, and he like zips around through time a little bit, but then he goes to the far future, and he gets stuck, and he discovers that in the far future, the Earth is populated by like two classes of like humanoid like race or whatever. And there's the Eloi, who are like beautiful, fair, they're just pretty Victorians basically, who live in like temples, and like food is brought to them. And then the Morlocks, who are like these subterranean like worker creatures, who I think in the movie are basically like apes. And every now and then the Morlocks will like kidnap an Eloi and eat them, I think.
Yeah.
So the Eloi, it turns out, are pretty much livestock, and that's like the horrible reveal, which I'm sure left the Victorians totally stunned and grossed out.
Or they love that shit. They probably put it on a Christmas card.
That's true. It doesn't pack as much of a punch now, but the whole thing was just a metaphor for like, I guess, socialism, or I guess like an overclass in like the, I don't even know. I don't really know what the idea was.
He was a member of the Fabian Society.
Were they the aristocrats? Were the Eloi the aristocrats?
I'm looking.
What's the Fabian Society? What does that mean?
So there's like a political, like this is his political, I guess, legacy. Yeah. So
Winston Churchill.
Really liked his books, and so the prime the prime minister uses the phrase gathering storm to describe the rise of Nazi Germany. It had been written by Wells in War of the Worlds.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, H.G. Wells, I guess, well, if he knew Winston Churchill and was friends with them, then
And
very active.
and I think Lenin too. He met up with.
Yeah, that is to say, with all of these writers too, I think back then, because there wasn't the internet, there was like, you would be a novelist, but also you would make quite a lot of your living as a writer, writing for like you would serialize your novels. They would come out in like journals, or like, later in pulp magazines. But like, there's no TV, right? So getting your subscription to Amazing Tales or whatever, like, was like getting a new episode.
Didn't happen yet. It almost happened, but not yet.
Amazing Tales was later.
It's a teensy bit. Well, I think it overlaps. But
was War of the Worlds published as a novel? Did you find that out?
Yeah,
okay.
War. So in 1938, there was a radio drama, the Mercury Theater. They had Orson Welles, a lot of Wells, and a lot of people with H in initials.
So the book has already been out for like 35 years, but then, Orson Welles and his theater group do a radio play of it.
Yeah, and they were told that it would be really boring. They were told that it would be super boring. Everyone would tune out. But they wanted to do something a little spooky. It was the day before. I think it's the day before Halloween.
Sounds right.
And they actually say in the beginning that they're like, this is a radio play. It's not real. But you couldn't go backward. There was no like backwards thingy. So like, I guess if you tuned in a little bit late, you missed that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess they didn't break for commercials.
They didn't break for commercials. It was 40 minutes. So, which also made it, because if it had been 30 minutes, there would have been a commercial after that, and then be like, okay, then bring you back to reality. But it was 40 minutes, so like ran over a little bit of a normal program. So that especially freaked people out. I love that. Basically, they said that in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, there was a UFO, and it interrupted. Like this, I think it was like an opera music program. So they started with like a regular program, and then they were like, wait, it's breaking news. And if you listen to it, they actually have the news reporter.
They're like, we're going live to the scene. With our reporter, and then there's.
Yeah, and the reporter makes it very believable, and they're like, oh, can you repeat yourself? And the actor, They do. They go, oh, okay. And they were like, repeat themselves again. So it has the feel. It feels very real. It felt very real. Apparently, there was a lot of people freaked out. But later on, like now, we think that people didn't freak out that much. They freaked out a little bit, but they didn't like kill themselves. Like at the time, I forget who it was. Someone came out with this. They went to New Jersey, which already... Step one, you can't trust anyone from New Jersey. They went to New Jersey and they were like, were you scared by this? And if the people said yes, they're like, part of my clinical study.
Oh, so they think it wasn't actually...
as freaky as it... Like, people were freaked, but they weren't like freaked up.
To be fair, the way they presented it, if you read like the summary or go back and listen to it, is they did a very cool thing for like the radio drama, which nobody had done in a radio drama. Like, radio dramas before them were like... people talking and the noises and the horses and whatever else. But they did it as if it was as you said, like an opera broadcast that's interrupted. They go to the scene and the reporter gets killed by the aliens. They cut to another reporter who's in New York City and they have like air raid sirens going and people running and yelling in the background.
I don't know. It's probably what they
and that reporter says that there's like poison gas coming. They start coughing.
Like extra staticky, which is like already creepy, but it's just like regular radio.
And then it cuts to like, I think a woman like in the radio station screaming like, is there anyone out there? Like, somebody please help me. Like,
yeah, that's the famous. They're like, is there anybody?
Yeah. So good for them. That's how you do some drama.
Is there anyone? Yeah. So a lot of people think that the reported freak outage-ness, it was kind of dig at radio, because people were afraid that radio would take over newspapers. And so newspapers reported, they were like, the radio's actually killing people because people killed themselves over this broadcast. So isn't it funny? It's like life imitating fiction, creating life imitating fiction, because it's like, isn't that another commentary on technology, the way that the newspaper dealt with the new technology?
Yeah, we don't have to be too cute about it.
I'm being
okay.
If I said it in a British,
not to let you down, but
what if
I'm
a
not
newspaper
gonna write a sociology article
talked about people have. That's why I'm bringing it up. Anyway, H.G. Wells.
Well, so now you've jumped ahead though, because H.G. Wells published in the late 1800s, but this radio play was in the 1930s.
Yes, so we'll go back to
which is finally
we can talk about
the pulp magazines took off, and a lot of the writers who I read.
Yes, 1911, Hugo Gernsback publishes.
So do you know what the yearly award for best science fiction novel?
The Hugo Awards.
Yeah, and it's named for Hugo Gernsback.
Yeah, who was kind of like a schmuck, to be honest. Like, when I read about, he was kind of, he was like, oh, you can print really cheap magazines, and people will buy the fuck out of them, and you can make a lot of money. And
to be fair, he was probably the original podcaster, kind of. It's a very cheap media format to produce.
Yeah. He wanted people to learn science through cute little stories. So if you wrote long, meandering, you indulged this, also as a writer, got paid by the word. So there was incentive to write
out your stories.
Exactly. The classic art of the pulp magazines, these, the alien, I feel like, I'm trying to describe it, it's like King Kong, but replace King Kong with an alien, holding a babe, that kind of fantasy sci-fi art. Hugo would do the art, and then sometimes he didn't have stories to go with it.
Forbidden Planet, I think, is the quintessential. Although the movie came out, I think in the 60s, maybe the 50s. I think the 50s. But Forbidden Planet would be the quintessential, giant, robot beast creature on Mars holding a babe.
Yes. So we have a picture kind of like that on our way back in the archives.
Yeah, that's quintessential pulp sci-fi cover.
Yeah, we're looking wantonly at the camera. Cue the sort of cyberpunk music. So Hugo would draw these covers, and he didn't have stories to go with them, so he would hold contests. He was like, who can write a story about this? And people did. And I actually have a couple of the covers if you want to come up with names.
Okay.
For them, if you.
By the way, famously, they paid very little compared to other publications for amazing tales. Very little, and so Hugo Gernsback, it was H.P. Lovecraft and also some other pulp writer too. They referred to him as Hugo the Rat. And so the writers,
Mark the Shark.
The writers hated him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would settle for, if you couldn't get a better journal to pick up your story, you would settle for
You're calling them
stories.
Journals? A better pulp mag?
Yeah, better pulp mag. So there's stories of H.P. Lovecraft trying to sell his stories to anyone else, and then he fails and ends up having to settle for amazing stories.
Well, before we, because we'll talk about H.P. Lovecraft in a moment. Can I pull up these covers and we come up with some? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me see. Oh yeah, here we go. So
They're super colorful.
Oh my gosh, why are you? Okay, here we go.
Super bright.
So we'll describe this one. It has there's two men that have really large foreheads.
Wait, let's set it. It's the August 26th.
I'll show it for the.
Sorry, August 1926. amazing stories. Amazing has a huge A, and it's got like kind of 3D
It's
letters.
like amazing. They're overlapped.
That
Yeah.
like a 12-year-old and be like, yo, this is dope fonting. And then it was 25 cents.
And there's like a little head. There's a blue little head on a table with tubes, and like some other tubes with like they look like globes. And then there's these two men with like really big foreheads, and one of them looks like he has a stethoscope to the head
They're both horrified by the head, though. They both are looking at it with disgust.
But one of them is like creepy disgust, and the other one is like interested disgust.
And then it says in the corner, actually, stories by H.G. Wells.
So what would the name of this story be?
Oh my God.
That's my title of it.
Horrifying heads.
And the four heads and 5 heads.
Mm-hmm.
Because these men have really big foreheads. I don't know if it's because their brains are going to explode.
I think it was a mark of intelligence at the time. That's really, we expected our scientists to.
Oh my God, this one looks so good. Okay, this is really, wow. So there's a robot.
You can show it. It's
Yeah.
a bright red background. Again, the cool fonting, cool 3D block letters.
Yeah. There's a robot, and it's holding a lion's mouth open.
Yeah, it's wearing a loincloth as well. It's wearing like an animal skin loincloth, which you don't need to dress your android, but someone has. Yeah, and it's holding open the jaws of a lion.
Yeah. And then there's like a crowd of people rushing the stadium that he's in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what would you call this story?
This is October 1928. Again, 25 cents. And it says right in the middle, by the way, Amazing Stories was published in Manhattan.
Yeah.
WRNY, too. I guess they had a radio station, too.
What would you call this one?
The Iron Gladiator.
Oh, yeah. That's a good... Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's see. Oh, this one...
What happened? Does it change when you get to the 30s, by the way? It just kept
going? When there's a different... Well, because then there starts to come out other stories, other pulp magazines, like Astounding Stories.
Because the Great Depression happened. 1929. Yes. It was like...
And Wonder Stories.
Black Friday. But it's kind of amazing that then
It's amazing.
They just kept publishing these. It's an amazing story. They kept coming
And then Scoops. Yeah, there's Wonder Stories. Oh, Wonder Stories got cheap. Wonder Stories is 15 cents. And Astounding Stories is 20 cents.
Yeah, Great Depression. They had to lower their prices probably so people could afford them.
Yeah. Ooh, this one's kind of Ooh, it's first Jurassic Park looking one. So this is a...
Thrilling Wonder Stories.
Thrilling Wonder Stories.
I feel like they ran out of synonyms almost.
Yeah, here we go. Wonder Stories. So it says 15 cents, cash prizes for the best short story. And they're like, caption this. This is the original.
This is a short story. Yeah. So there are two dinosaurs fighting each other.
One of them is like biting the other one's like chest, and the other one looks shocked. Like the other dinosaur is like, how dare you? And yeah. And then there's like some gladiators. There's like Apollo and like the 300 dude inside of a little bubble.
There's three time travelers. There's a Spanish conquistador, what looks like a Roman centurion, and then I can't tell the other guy. I don't know. Is like a Greek god or something. But they're in a little bubble.
And they're like
watching the.
They're like, by Jove, I can't believe my eyes.
Yeah, I like in the corner it says, a thrilling publication.
Yeah, this looks thrilling.
It looks like a tabloid, right? With the different now it's got the different headings around the sides of it. It looks like a modern magazine design actually.
Yeah, well, what would you call this one?
Oh. Well, I did the last one. You go.
A Wrinkle in Dine, because dinosaurs.
It's
the dinosaur traveler's wife.
Boo. Oh, because they're time travelers.
Yeah, because they're time travelers. Because these dinosaurs are getting wrinkled. Like, they're eating
Let
each
me
other.
out of this bubble. I want to pet that dino.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one more. With this one, this is in the Fantastic Adventures.
Good. I was hoping we would get to. That's my favorite of them. Yeah, this is your quintessential.
Yeah, this one's also 20 cents.
This has a babe. Has a babe on the cover. She's in distress.
There's a giant spider.
Yeah.
There's a spider. There's a spider that's coming up to her. She has a gun, or no, she's like she's some kind of gun.
She's like an oboe.
Yeah, but it clearly didn't
Some
work because
oboe.
she is passed the fuck out. And then there's this Don Draper dude that's like shooting the spider in its
With
eye.
a ray gun.
Yeah.
He's shooting the spider in the
And
face.
the spider's like, the spider's like poking the girl's boob too, which I love.
So this is The Prince of Mars Returns by Philip Nolan, author of Buck Rogers.
Is the spider the Prince of Mars?
I think the Prince of Mars is the guy with the gun.
He's the Prince of Mars. What an awesome name. You're like, I'm the Prince of Mars.
Oh, that's not what it was. That was, the title of that was called Terminites Invade New York.
Oh, see page 8. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was like the first tabloid maybe? Like the first Star
That should have
Inquirer.
been called Spider. I hardly know her.
That's a good one.
Genre.
Yes.
But there are still a number of like, I don't even know. I guess like groundbreaking or like still like well regarded like authors who were writing around this time.
Yeah.
But it was very hard, I think, to make a living, just as an author in general.
Well, I think
but especially as a science fiction
Great
writer.
Depression actually helped these pulp magazines because they were very cheap to make, and people were still buying them because they wanted to fantasize, and there was tons of commentary you could do about war and like the innovations that were happening. Yeah.
Wait, by the way, if we can say 1929, which is the year Great Depression started, is Buck Rogers started its publication as a comic strip, and that is, Calvin and Hobbes, Spaceman Spiff, that is Buck Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like an astronaut having these adventures on another planet. That's 1929 is the year Hugo Gernsback coins the term science fiction. Before that, it was just fiction.
Or fantasy.
Or
reality.
They just didn't call it. They didn't have a genre for it, I guess.
Amazing stories.
Oh, and then around that time, Fritz Lang produced, I guess, Metropolis, right? Which I think is the first science fiction movie.
Really? Maybe it is.
I don't know of an earlier one. It's black and white. Yeah,
I'm looking.
1926 Metropolis came out. Sorry.
Yeah, and then you can see in 1930, astounding science fiction, science wonder stories, wonder stories, astounding stories of super science. They all come into publication. So
there are a bunch of copycats.
Yeah, and I think it's because a lot of people didn't like writing for Hugo.
This reminds me of This is what happened with like early video game systems, right? Or like the video game crash of like 79.
Yep.
And 82 and whatever else. Just there were a bunch of copycats who like made even crappier versions of a thing that already wasn't necessarily widely respected.
And then in 1932, Aldous Huxley publishes Brave New World, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is made into a film.
Yeah. So maybe we'll talk about Huxley.
Yes. Yeah. You want to talk about Huxley?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brave New World is like kind of super highly regarded as like one of the probably like top 10 like sci-fi novels everyone needs to read. It's a sad story in general, and that it's set in this future, seems like a utopia, but it's actually a dystopia. Surprise.
That's often how dystopias begin.
But it created a number of like, I guess, cultural touchstones that you've probably heard of. So there's a drug called Soma that like everybody takes that sounds like a pretty good drug. It just calms you down.
Yep.
I think.
It's like
it's
Xanax.
basically a Xanax. Yeah, but it's called
Zany
Soma.
bars.
It's everybody is basically like, genetic engineering has reached like its peak. It's I think it inspired Gattaca a lot actually. Genetic engineering has reached its peak, and every baby is created or born for a specific purpose, and career, and so they even like will like cause brain damage to some of the embryos who are going to just be like garbage men or whatever, so they'll like more readily accept like a bad job. Man? You don't get to choose. Oh. You're like born for it, and they make you dumb so that you'll be like good at like manual labor.
Garbage men are like it's very difficult to be
it actually is
man.
A difficult job.
They're New York's bravest. Did you know? Or New York's.
Look, I didn't write the book. I'm just telling you about the plot of Brave New World. There's the alphas who are like, right, the gammas are like the laborers, like the proletariat, and there's the alphas. It's very much a commentary on capitalism as well and class structures. And but there's an alpha who doesn't fit in. He's like, for whatever reason, he's not as handsome or as cool as the other alphas. Fiction is.
Yes.
It's heavy-handed. But anyway, a bunch of stuff happens. There are a number of references to Shakespeare in it too. The writing isn't half bad. It's okay. It's got a total cop-out of an ending, which is very frustrating and annoying to read. But yeah, cool book. And